am going to make a short introduction because I know that Reverend Sharpton has a hard deadline he has to make, but I want to thank him personally so much for the work he does in the country as one of the nation's strongest civil rights voices, for the work he does in his own organizations, and now has taken on a project, the Education Equality Project. For those of you who don't know it, please go to their website. I know I've signed up, all of our colleagues have signed up. This is an amazing effort from exactly the right voice, I believe, and I'm extremely grateful that you're here today. Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you very much. First of all, in full disclosure, I am really hired by the Harvard Jihad to find Compton. I'm not really Al Sharpton. This is my disguise. But this morning, early this morning, a very cynical and abrasive activist Democrat asked me why would I be at the Republican Convention appearing on a stage with Newt Gingrich. And I looked at him in the mirror and said, that there must be some things that we can put partisan and even ideological things aside for, and that must be our children. The fact of the matter is that all of us, whatever we believe, whatever our party affiliation, whatever our philosophy, religion, or ideologies, all of us will leave behind us some world that our children must negotiate their way through. And I think that part of what has been left out of the discussion of education in this country is the children must be the priority, and that we should not serve other interests first and get to the children after we've protected various interests and various concerns. In 1954, the Civil Rights Movement took a huge, in my judgment, step forward with Brown versus the Board of Education, the Supreme Court decision that changed education and changed race relations. But the fact of the matter is that 54 years later, the achievement gap of minorities in this country is about where it was in 1954. We can go to our various corners in the political arena, or we can stop arguing and screaming at each other and realize that something is not working, and we have to have an honest discussion to make things fair and equal for all of our children. A friend of mine, James M. Toomey, said to me several months ago, he says, if you are sincere about civil rights, and I am, then there is no greater civil rights issue in America today than education reform. Young people cannot compete, either as Americans in general, as Mr. Compton's film shows, or people in impoverished communities, or people in communities of color, if we do not equalize and make available equal quality education. And we might have to make new alliances and readjustments. The alliances and coalitions of the past should not be, in my judgment, something that we hold up as sacred if they do not work now. Our children cannot be the battered children of a bad marriage that they neither made the vows nor the decision to engage in, but that we keep engaging in because we wedded 50 years ago, but neither of us are taking care of the children in the marriage. So as I entered the discussion and began working with the New York City School Chancellor Joel Klein, one of the things that shocked me is that people that enter the discussion enter to protect themselves rather than to upgrade and educate the children. I think there's several things that must be challenged. One, we must challenge internally parents. When I go to a school and there are 5,000 children and 15 parents at a PTA meeting, as much as I agitate, as Newt would say, or give prophetic voice, as I would say, to government, I cannot hold government responsible if parents are not taking seriously the education of their children. Fact of the matter is, if parents can find $125 to buy kids some sneakers, they can find time to go to a PTA meeting and find a way to engage in that child's education. I was raised in a single-parent home. On welfare in the urban dwellings in Brooklyn, New York. But my mother never was so poor or disadvantaged that she did not make me do homework at night, did not know all of my teachers, they did not have her phone number, and she did not make it crystal clear that I was expected to be someone. The fact of the matter is, I didn't even know I was underprivileged till I got to Brooklyn College. When I went to Brooklyn College and studied sociology, the sociology teacher said, tomorrow we're going to start the next 2 weeks studying the underprivileged. I said, fine with me. He said, we're going to study people in housing projects from single-parent homes on welfare. I said, oh, he's talking about me. And the reason I didn't know that I was underprivileged is my mother didn't raise me as to what I didn't have. She raised me as to what was expected of me and what she wanted me to be. And I must say that I consider it the height of cynicism and bias for people to cuddle me and diminish my self-esteem by excusing me based on my circumstance rather than investing and freeing me to reach my full potential. We do not need an educational system that confirms inferiority. We need an educational system that challenges excellence and tells every child that they can be what they want to be and who they ought to be. And this whole embrace of a culture of thuggery and hoodlumism and antisocial behavior is not what those in the civil rights movement fought for. We did not fight for the right to be decadent. We fought for the right to be excellent, and we need a new coalition toward that. So as Joe Klein and I and Mayor Fente and Mayor Booker and Governor Roma and others started this initiative, and we're glad that despite some may question him from his following, Speaker Gingrich signed on. And we have said that we will all work, and of course we're not going to agree on everything, and we're not apologizing for disagreements in the past or in the future. But we're saying that there must be a place where we can put it all on the table, and that we must seek and struggle to find a way to recapture the academic pursuits of this country on a fair and equal basis. So parents must be challenged, and they must be challenged by those in those communities. And we must rid ourselves of the excuses. There are no excuses for lack of parental involvement. We had the same session, Governor Roma and I, in the Democratic Convention. And I said there, everybody must have their hands on the table. We cannot have an honest discussion where we only hold some accountable and not all, including my allies and friends in the labor movement. You cannot say schools must be improved, but we cannot judge the performance of teachers. That is unacceptable. Yes. Yes, I support teachers. Yes, I work with teachers' unions. Yes, I agree with the governor. They are vital to the discussion. But we can't have any sacred cows in the room when our children are behind in math and science. When I go to Detroit and only 32% of the young black men are graduating high school and 50% in New York, there are no people at the table that cannot be accounted for, accountable, and we find ways to improve what they do. So I think the challenge is that we must change the discussion. It must not be us against them, it must be all of us saying that we all bear some fault and some responsibility, and that we all must put as priority the children that we raise. 100 years from now, who will care what party we were a member of if we are the ones that kept this downward spiral of American excellence? Who will care who won what election if those elected do not raise the bar and raise the opportunity for all American children? We cannot be so caught up in our temporary settings that we do not heal a permanent problem. I will not be able to be here for the entire discussion, but I want to give those remarks. I do have a syndicated radio show. If you want a fair and balanced review of your convention, you can listen to it. But I want to thank Mr. Gingrich, despite our differences, for saying let's all stand up and find a way, let's fight it out. I want to thank Governor Roma. I think it's important that children in school today and children unborn know that real leaders are those that make adjustments, even if it sacrifices ego and agenda, to do for the next generation better than was done for them. My mother's generation fought for the right to vote. It made it possible for me to grow up and run for president. I owe my children's generation and their children's generation more than unequal schooling, unaccountable teaching, and excuses on why we're going backwards rather than forward, while the rest of the world, who may not have our resources, but have seemed to find a way to move forward. I challenge us to move together because our children are at stake and our legacy as Americans is at risk. Thank you and God bless you.